What is going on, everybody? Hey, how's it going? Hope you guys are doing great. I wanted to make this video because I had a recent experience with this CARES Act stuff as it regards to a tenant that is renting out an apartment on a current lease. And they had basically come across some hardship, of course, work in the restaurant industry, and they have done either closed their operations or are doing takeout only, which has inadvertently reduced his income. So I want to talk about a conversation I had today. He had asked me if I could join in on a conference call with him and his, the leasing office, really, and a representative from there, and to discuss some options. And in particular, this guy, he had missed his, he was late on his March 2020 rental payment. And they had already filed a judgment, and we're going to have a court date and proceeding there for an eviction. But he had worked something out to where he had a remaining balance, and if he just paid that balance, it would clear out March. But then, of course, April's coming around and still being in an economic difficulty on hardship. Basically, he will be late for April as well. So what they had set up and what he had discussed was that they were just going to do a payment plan. So he would need to pay on the 3rd and on the 17th of April, half up front on the 3rd, half on the 17th, to which was also going to be a issue. So he just asked me if I could help and have that conversation. So we did. So today we got on a conference call. I got to talk a little bit and just petition about what I understand about the CARES Act, and I'd read that portion regarding tenants and the provisions there for tenants, which, to my understanding, is if they had some financial hardship during this time, and in fact, when the CARES Act was signed, which was Thursday. If they have moving forward within the next 120 days, if they have been affected economically by that, that the landlord cannot evict or charge penalties or fees for reasons of non-payment. So basically, allowing a forbearance for rental payments for up to 4 months from when it was signed. So I brought that up to them and discussed that, and what she had said was that the corporate has mandated or has had their response in a sense to the recent events, and what they had at this point was just to have that payment plan set up for right now, and there's nothing else that she knows about any changes that could happen or any forbearance, and they have to have clearance from their corporate office before they can start offering things like that. So then that was one angle that we had discussed, and I was discussing, well, if the tenant is late on their payment, then what and they get charged late fees, because that was one of the issues. They were going to charge late fees if they don't make the payment plan from April 3rd and April 17th. If they don't pay on time, there's going to be late fees. So we're even contesting that, and the bill was saying that there could be no penalties or fees for non-payment, to which she stuck to that. She said, basically, we need to wait for corporate to tell us what exactly we can do for people in those situations. So that was one angle, and my understanding from that point was there's not really anything we can do because she has to hear from corporate right now, at least for today, for Sunday. So I went from another angle, and I actually asked him his situation, and he had mentioned that he had just got a full-time job in retail this past Friday, and he's starting this week on Monday, and he wouldn't get his first check for a couple weeks probably, as it's on a biweekly. He was saying biweekly cycle when he gets paid. So April 3rd is less than a week away. He's not going to make that with his new income. So we had talked about, and the angle I was coming at then was I discussed about his situation. He tried to get a job. He got hired for a job. He has letters substantiating from his current jobs, which he works mostly in the restaurant industry, has a few jobs, and those jobs are restaurant industry minus his new retail job. And the restaurant industry had basically put him on a leave of absence. And of course, if you're not working and you in the restaurant industry, you make tips. He's not now getting tips, so massive reduction in pay and wages, which is causing financial hardship. So I petitioned for him that he's trying. He's not. It's not like he's trying to dodge his payments, but that he's making an effort to make things better and make things right for his situation. And if the recent events haven't impacted his employment, that he possibly or more than likely would have been able to pay and be current and not have as much financial strife. And to which her tone changed. And it wasn't even argumentative to begin with, but her tone changed. And it was very much, and almost like she understood, and that possibly my friend, wasn't the only person going through this. And she's had several conversations with people regarding similar topics. And so she kind of understood, but she couldn't promise anything, understandably. So she basically said, well, it's Sunday right now, the corporate's closed, and we're not going to know until Monday, possibly. But she said things change every single day. So once we get the update, you guys will know. And that's understandable, but that is a very important point. And I brought this up during the call, is that, and I addressed both of them. It's kind of funny, but I addressed both of them, and I said, to the leasing office agent, that it's understandable because this just came out on Thursday, and not only tenants are having to adjust and try to scramble to figure out what's going on and what are the options for them based on these changes in these laws, but also too that landlords or investors are having to scramble and figure out how they are going to basically take care of their tenants or what to do with the tenants, but also secondly, how are they going to pay their rent? So it's we can as a tenant, we could think, I want to stick it to my landlord because of the laws, but they're also in a strained position now, having tenants that aren't able to pay. What happens? So it definitely is a delicate situation, and giving credence and understanding to that from the landlord side is very important. So backtrack into the greater picture, the bigger picture. If you're a tenant, whether you're in an apartment, if you're renting a house, or from somebody, a property owner, investor, whatever it is, and you have direct access to the owner, it definitely is very tense right now, and it's very understandable because who knows, right? The fear is that you could be evicted. Now, where are you going to go? And with income being reduced, it's a stressful time for you as a tenant, for sure. Also, it's a very stressful time for you as a landlord if you don't have the means to float a non-paying tenant. So definitely be understanding if you're going to, and by the way, I'll go over this in a minute, but if you're going to be having this conversation, definitely try to have your mindset in the right place where, yes, you are in a troubled situation, in a situation where you do need help, and you need somebody to respond to that, because what we're dealing with is your living arrangements. And totally justifiable. It's important for you to defend and fight for your ability to live somewhere, right? At the same time, though, understand that if you come across it with your landlord or the property management office in a sense of, hey, this is my situation, this is really tough, I know you guys are scrambling too and it's hard, can we work something out? Can you stay in touch with me? Something, right? And so right now there's no definitive answer on how, in this situation, how it's going to end up. And we have resorted, though, to staying in touch. So tomorrow there's going to be another call. Of course, he's going to be exploring more options about his situation, what options are available for him for unemployment, and what the office will come up with. The leasing office agent also mentioned about how corporate was working something up in regards to the changes that happened as a result of the CARES Act. So they're also in discussion about what options they can give their tenants. So right now, there's probably a lot of activity, a lot of questions, and possibly a lot of emotions, actually probably all three. And with that, if you can come in with as clear of a head as you can, and just present your case, right? Especially if you are a tenant who has paid on time regularly and have actually been affected by this, you have substantiated grounds for saying that this is a legitimate hardship, because you wouldn't have otherwise been not paying, or you have no reason to not pay. So that's what I also recommend. Gather up your history, your employment history, and bring that to the table as well. The one thing I was going to mention too is that if you're in Arizona, and I live in Arizona, in Phoenix specifically, Governor Doug Ducey had passed an executive order 2020-14. I think it was a few days ago, but essentially in this executive order, he addresses who exactly is the population he's talking about. And it's basically anybody who's been affected by coronavirus. So if you are ill, whether it's coronavirus or not, if you have coronavirus, if you are in risk of being somebody who could be more susceptible to coronavirus. I mean, it's anything that has to do with that and your health. And of course, definitely read the bill. I can even tag this later. I know I'm doing this live, but I can put a link to this executive order for you. But anyone who's been affected health-wise by the COVID-19, and then also anyone, and I'll read this, any individual suffered a substantial loss of income resulting from COVID-19, including job loss, reduction in compensation, closure of place of employment, which is happening to a lot of restaurants and a lot of different establishments, obligation to be absent from work to care for a homebound school-age child, or other pertinent circumstances, which can be loosely defined, or other pertinent circumstances. But mainly in this case, what's been defined as job loss or financial hardship, in addition to taking care of your kids. And it says, if a tenant, lessee, or resident is suffering any of the above circumstances and seeks relief from or delay in eviction, they shall notify the landlord or property owner in writing with any available supporting documentation of their temporary financial hardship or state of quarantine as a result of COVID-19, and acknowledge that contractual terms of the lease remain in effect. And then landlords shall not interpret a health and safety provision of a contract to include COVID-19 as a reason for termination of a lease or rental agreement, nor shall a landlord terminate a lease or rental agreement solely based on information provided by the tenant to satisfy a notice requirement under paragraph 2. So just because you have a health issue or one of these, if you have a health issue, if COVID-19 has affected you in some way, that can't be a reason for eviction, a landlord to evict you. Number 2, I did jump over that, but basically that there is saying that even though that these events have been affecting you, that you are still bound to the contractual terms of the lease. It doesn't forgive you or release you from that contract. However, with that said, in line 4 it says, or number 4, no provision contained in this executive order shall be construed as relieving any individual of the obligation to pay rent or comply with any other obligation that an individual may have under tenancy, and this executive order shall remain in effect for 120 days. Now, there is a section here that discusses about, maybe skipping over it. Let's see. Basically, as I'd read it previously, you cannot be evicted for up to 120 days as a result of non-payment if these situations, as described that I just went over, apply to you. So at the Arizona level, that is also in effect for you as well. So you have the CARES Act at the federal level, you have the executive order at the state level. So again, this is all new. This is all recent. So everybody's trying to figure out what to do. Some people don't even know this exists. And probably a lot of conversations happening right now that have to do with your living situation and keeping where you live. Whether that's all, I was just talking about tenancy. This also applies to mortgages, which is also actually much more described and discussed in the CARES Act, the federal bill. So anyway, this is just an update. Maybe doing more videos about this as things unfold. And my recommendation to you, again, as I said before, is if you're a tenant, try to keep a level head. I know it's hard. It's easier said than done, but try to remain calm, substantiate your case, get the information about whether it's your consistency in payment, whether it's your work history and your efforts to get employment or unemployment for that matter. Um, Anything that's trying to, any efforts you're making to better your situation, so you can use that to substantiate uh, your position, if you will, as a sound tenant, as a responsible tenant, and then appeal to their, their, I guess, their graces, if you will. That was my angle. It's just, hey, this is just a tough situation for everybody. This particular case, he's trying. Can you make something happen? And then understand that the landlord is also having to scramble and figure out whether they're a corporation or they're an individual. Not all landlords are in a position um, you've probably seen in the news that they just kind of waive rents and just because they can, which is in some people's position, but others, they're not able to do that. So they're having to figure out what, almost in the same situation as you, although their place of residence may not be compromised, or maybe, but regardless, is that it's sensitive for them too. Possibly even more complex at the corporate level. So I hope this has helped you out in some way. Again, I'll link this executive order. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. It'll be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you guys have a great day.